Did you finish plotting out your book with the 3-act structure that we went over in the previous videos? If your answer is no, then keep watching. Hi, I'm Hananya Leclerc. I am a multi-genre writer who shares tips and tricks and talks about her life. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video. So if you've struggled throughout the kind of process that we went through with the 3-act structure, then I feel you. I was struggling all the way through with these acts as well and trying to really plot my book according to these beats. I feel like I do better if I can just kind of write out some ideas and just plop them out on the page and see where we go from there. I learned a lot about myself during this process because I always thought that I was kind of a plotter and I always had bullet points of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go, but having it relate to like specific beats really made it difficult for me to know what beat relates to what scene that I've come up with and what is it that they're really wanting me to do. In a way, I almost feel like mine is just kind of an instinctive feeling of, oh yeah, so we want this to happen and then we want like an event that sets them off into motion and that's the catalyst and that's like gonna set everything offshore and then we're gonna go here and then we're gonna go there. To me, I almost want to say, like, I don't want to be like, oh yeah, it comes super naturally, but I feel like in a way I always have the moments where it's like, okay, we kind of set the scene, we kind of see where we're starting, and then something happens that really sets them into motion, and then we have like all these other things happen, then we have a moment where it's like, yeah, not really, and then we kind of crawl back up and try and find a way to resolve the story. And I feel like I always have that in my mind, and maybe it's because I also have a background in film production with the bachelor degree that I did, but I don't know. I just didn't know exactly what to plot with what beat in this kind of overview. And if you feel the same, then I'm gonna share a little bit about how I ended up doing it. So I still don't know if I have the full beat sheet filled out the way that it was meant to be filled out, or if I really have all the beats kind of down. I feel as I've moved from Act 1 to Act 2 and Act 3, I think Act 2 and part of Act 3, I feel like I've got down a little bit. Like, I don't know necessarily if my scenes that I currently have written down really match up with the beats perfectly, but something along those lines will probably happen around that time, and that can be that beat. But for the start, I'm still struggling with what would be the right thing to start with and kind of how I'm even gonna continue the story. And even with the beats, and even before I recorded Act 2 and Act 3 of the beats, I kind of just sat down and started brainstorming because I didn't feel like I had enough kind of information about the story, and I didn't feel like I knew my characters well enough to really kind of know what the story is about, where we're gonna go with the story, and how the characters are gonna make decisions that are gonna affect the story. I feel like that was more so important to me than knowing the full beats per beats kind of thing that was gonna happen. And I feel like I couldn't do the beat per beat planning of things if I didn't know the characters a little bit better. So I ended up just brainstorming a bunch and just kind of writing down, okay, this is a scene that could happen that could lead to this scene. And because I figured out that I wanted to do a dual POV, which we will talk about in a different video, I also kind of started brainstorming, okay, well, we can have this from this person's perspective and then this from that person's perspective, and then kind of alternate and see, okay, what would be a logical kind of next scene for this person. And that's kind of how I just brain dumped and brainstormed a little bit into a Scrivener document and just kind of wrote down bullet points, really. Okay, we're just gonna get into examples here. So I basically wrote down, like, this can be a scene where Lizzie finds out that Jackson is actually a vampire. And that was like a thing that I wrote down, and that was all I kind of wrote down. And then I have another one where it's like, this can be a scene where Lizzie finds out that Vlad's a vampire. And it's just kind of these moments that I wrote down, and not necessarily the full scene, not necessarily how it's going to go down fully, because that is what I will figure out once I write. But as I was doing this, I did have kind of like dialogue moments pop into my head, which I quickly jotted down. and I just kept going in this kind of general direction. Now, I didn't finish off my list with like the full ending in mind. I just kind of brainstormed and said, I'm just gonna see where this leads me and kind of see what I come up with. I told myself it doesn't have to be perfect because this is just a brain dump, but this is just a brainstorm and we're just gonna see what my characters tell me is gonna happen. And if you struggled with plotting out your book according to the beat sheet as well, then that might be kind of what you need to do. You might need to go back and kind of brainstorm a little bit more. Just kind of write down scene ideas that you might have, kind of write down what your characters might do, where they might go, what will happen kind of to them or with them, or what they find out, what they don't find out, kind of the decisions that they make, and kind of see if any of that kind of sparks ideas on how to approach certain scenes or what kind of scenes you want to include in general. And then just write them all down. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is just your brain dump. This is just you kind of getting your creative juices flowing so that you can eventually plot out your book with the beat sheet. Now, even if you feel like the beat sheet might not be for you, that is completely fine. We don't have to follow the beat sheet. You can also just kind of go by the seat of your pants and go back once you have written kind of a first draft and kind of then puzzle out what would be kind of with what beat so that we know if your pacing is correct. I think that is also a bit kind of where the beat sheet comes in as well, where you can just kind of see if you are making the progress that you're supposed to be making in the amount of kind of pages and stuff that you're meant to according to this book. I'm saying meant to because there is creative freedom in this kind of thing, right? You don't have to follow a specific structure all the time. You can always just kind of go off course and do your own thing. These are just kind of recommendations or a way to do this. This is not always the way that's gonna work for you, but it is a way to do things. So let's look at the things that I did write down. So for Act 1, I really am struggling with the opening image. When I started brainstorming this onto the notebook, I kind of wrote down that the opening image can either be a reveal that my male character Jackson is a vampire, or it can be that maybe they just go on a date, or it can be kind of a more drastic scene where he bites into her neck. And I wrote down like kind of these things. Maybe it's an introduction to the family. Do I even start before the relationship, or do I start before it? Like, where do I start? And I kind of didn't know, and I still feel like I don't exactly know. I think I might start with the bite because that is really kind of a oh, what is happening kind of moment. So I feel like that might be a good way to start the story and then kind of go from there. But what I might do once I start writing this is write both scenarios, like write a couple. I feel like right now I have two kind of scenarios that I'm kind of mostly stuck with in my head. So one would be kind of a scene where unexpectedly she meets the family and finds out they're all vampires, and another one is that we just start with the bite scene, and I don't know which one I want to pick yet, so I might just write both and then see how I feel with that once we get there. Then B2 was the theme stated, and I kind of was struggling with it as well. I wrote down, this relationship would never work. You two seem so different. You will ruin her life if you don't walk away now. You are putting her life in danger by being in her life, and you always want what you can't have. And those are kind of the things that I wrote down. I don't necessarily know if that is the theme that's really stated here, but it's what I've written down. I feel like the kind of message is almost like people aren't always what they seem, or like, you know, love conquers all, kind of stuff like that probably is what we're gonna wrap it up with. So then the setup, I kind of wrote down flaws and stasis equals death, and then also a list of what's wrong needs fixing. Can be like lost jobs, family sucks, like living situation, immortality, lonely, like stuff like that. And I was kind of brainstorming this as a before the relationship, and I feel like that was not the right way to do this. I feel like I should have done this kind of at the, I don't know, in like a different way. So I might rework this, but I kind of also feel like I will figure this out once I'm writing this and not right now on a piece of paper. Then we move on to the catalyst, and I had originally written down that this was going to be the bite scene or the reveal of the vampires, but I think this might be like a different one. Maybe this, it could be the bite if I start, for example, the opening image with her finding out they're all vampires, but I don't know. I don't know exactly how I want to do it. I think that's almost how I want to do it, but because I think that's going to make the most sense, but we'll see once I start writing this. Then we're almost getting to the end of Act 1. So Act 1 ends with the debate, and I basically have written down walk away / leave. So basically this is kind of the should they stay together, should they not stay together kind of debate that they're getting into, of like, okay, well, what would be the right decision right now, because it's just gonna get worse if they stay together. So it's kind of a debate on like, okay, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna break up or not, kind of thing. And then we enter Act 2 with the break into 2, which I wrote down Lizzie, which is my female character, leaves / is forced to leave. So I want her to kind of leave the situation and find a different life, kind of. So that is what I wrote down. And the way that I said forced to leave is because I kind of maybe want her to be compelled to leave by one of the family members of Jackson, and Jackson is my main male love interest, and I kind of want that to be kind of how they separate. So it's not necessarily by choice, but it's just kind of a forced way that they're separating. Then next on the list is B story, and this is kind of where I want to introduce the kind of antagonist and new love interest of Lizzie, and I don't really know what else I'm gonna do from Jackson's point of view, because I'm trying to come up with ways that I can write this in dual POV. So I also want some chapters of his perspective as the two are apart. So I'm thinking maybe Jackson finds out that she is gone, she's missing. Maybe her mother put up missing posters of like missing person stuff. I don't know exactly, or maybe he tries to find her, goes to like the roommates or something, and it's like, where is she? And he can't really figure it out, and he just goes sulking a little bit probably, but stuff like that. Like I kind of want to have also moments from his perspective, but I know that she is going to meet Vlad, and that is going to become like her new love interest. Then we move on to the fun and games. So for the fun and games, I basically wrote down that these are the key things, like what the book is about. So I basically said, well, this is about Lizzie finding love, but realizing that the man she is to marry might not be all that he claims to be. So this is kind of a little bit the thing. So I feel like the fun and games part will probably also cover kind of her getting to know Vlad a little bit more and thinking that he's a great guy, and then getting introduced to the family that is with Jackson basically, but she doesn't remember, because I kind of want the compelling to leave also for her to not remember Jackson and his family. So she doesn't remember that Jackson is a vampire, she doesn't remember that she even knows Jackson, but then they see each other because Vlad has invited the whole family to the wedding, and they're gonna like see each other again. Jackson's gonna be like, why does she not remember me? And it's gonna be a whole thing. But I feel like that is gonna be kind of the build up to her finding out more and more about Vlad through Jackson. And that kind of leads us to the midpoint. So the midpoint, I don't necessarily know what I want the midpoint exactly to be, but I know that there's gonna be reveals along the way. So either the midpoint is gonna be like the first big reveal of, hey, Vlad is a vampire, or maybe it's like, hey, we knew each other before. Like it's just something that is gonna set Lizzie off into a, wait, what is going on? Why do I feel like I am missing stuff? Why do I not remember if you say that I knew you? Like all of these things are gonna kind of come up. So this is kind of a midpoint plus bad guys closing in. So I feel like there's going to be so many kind of little reveals towards Lizzie that Lizzie doesn't remember and doesn't know, and we're slowly going to kind of get those trickle in from Jackson. So Jackson's going to share some stuff, some other siblings are going to share some stuff, and I feel like that is going to be how she finds out more and more about Vlad and more about her life previously with Jackson. And I also kind of want Vlad to kind of start getting suspicious. Maybe Lizzie starts acting differently around him. Now that she knows that he's a vampire, she might flinch a little bit when he first touches her, or like stuff like that. So she's just like a little bit startled and like acting a little bit strange. So he is trying to kind of ask her what's going on, like stuff like that. I kind of want the tension to build about him potentially finding out what Jackson is telling her. I think Vlad doesn't necessarily know that the two of them knew each other. So it's gonna be like a whole kind of, hey, what's going on? She's like finding out more about Vlad, but then also having to pretend that, you know, she's in love with him still. Is she still in love with him? And it's just kind of like in her mind of like, okay, but I don't know Jackson. He's telling me all these things. Like, how do I know I can trust him? Versus her fiance that she's with, and like everything that she doesn't know about him, but then who does she trust, kind of thing. So I feel like that is kind of where I want this to go. So if we then move on to the all is lost part, I feel this is her just kind of like finding out that Vlad is going to kill her. So that is just kind of a ritual that he does. He marries the humans and then kills them on their wedding night. So I feel like that is kind of his recurring thing. So I think that is probably kind of the all is lost moment, is probably going to be something like, okay, well, he's going to kill you if we don't do something. And that is kind of, I think, what we're gonna do. This might even also be like, maybe Vlad is starting to get suspicious and maybe he moves up the wedding date so that she doesn't have a chance to come up with a plan. And it's just like, yeah, you're getting married tomorrow and there's nothing you can do about it. And then he's gonna kill you. So I feel like that would probably be a good kind of tension accelerator where the wedding date is like moved up. So then we have the dark night of the soul, and that is kind of the realization, right? So I feel like this will be kind of the realization that Lizzie and Jackson are at endgame, like we want them to be together. And I feel like this could be a good moment where Lizzie is starting to get back her memories a little bit. So she might start to have memories flash back into her mind, and she might start to remember some like moments that she had with Jackson. She might start to remember that the love that she might feel for Vlad doesn't feel the same as like the love that she might feel for Jackson. Or maybe she start thinking, okay, well, I don't really know all the memories I had with Jackson, but I feel really comfortable around him and I feel very uncomfortable around Vlad. And that could be like kind of a realization moment in the dark night of the soul of like, okay, this wasn't what I wanted actually. I don't necessarily know if I'm interpreting the dark night of the soul 100% correctly, but this is kind of what I wrote down now, and I know that I will figure it out once I start writing this, if potentially this is gonna change. Then we're moving into Act 3 with Break into 3, which I feel like is a realization on how to fix it. So I think maybe Lizzie feels like, okay, the wedding's moved up, I don't know what to do now. I want to get out of this wedding, I don't want to do this, but I don't know how to tell anyone or how to get out. And I feel like this is probably going to be a realization where she's like, I can reach out to someone because someone has super sensitive hearing and I can call out to that person and then they can send in the reinforcements, like they can send in the cavalry, and hopefully that is going to help them figure out a way to get out of this. And I feel like that can be from Lizzie's perspective, and then from Jackson's perspective, this can be kind of a way that he figures out how to save her and how to kill Vlad and just end this for all. So I kind of want that to be something that happens with this kind of plot point and this beat. So we'll see how it works out, but that is what I have written down so far. Then if we look at the finale, I basically wrote down, this is the walk down the aisle. So she's still gonna walk down, but then like the showdown happens at the wedding and Vlad somehow dies. I still don't know how I'm really gonna have this fight come to be, and like how they're gonna kill Vlad or how to prevent the other vampires from killing them. But I'll figure it out once I get there. And then I even wrote down, this might also include that Lizzie has to die and might come back as a vampire or stays human. I haven't figured that out completely, but I do want something to happen here, right? It has to be dramatic because it's the finale, it's a final battle, it's kind of the whole wrap up of this story of like, yes, let's defeat the antagonist. Then for the final image, I kind of wrote down that this can be that Jackson and Lizzie are now together, and maybe she's a vampire, maybe she's not. I haven't figured that out yet. I don't necessarily know, but they will probably return back home, I guess, in a way. I don't know exactly like how to wrap it up. I feel like the endings are usually a part that I struggle with a little bit, of knowing exactly how to end it, but it will probably come to me once I start writing it on how I want this to wrap up. So I also kind of wrote down what I want them to realize. So I kind of have that, like, Jackson can realize that maybe Lizzie was never meant to make him feel happy about being a vampire. Like, maybe he was very unhappy about being a vampire and he tried to cling on to someone that's human to kind of have that fulfillment of like, okay, I can still have kind of one leg into that world and feel like whole. And I think he needs to kind of accept the fact that he is a vampire, and he needs to kind of just come to terms with that. And I think that might be a little bit like his character arc. And then for Lizzie, I find it a little bit difficult because I want Lizzie to kind of have a, I want love, but is love really all I need? And should I just kind of, you know, come to terms with myself first and love myself? That scared me. So I don't really have like a full-on arc for Lizzie at the moment. I do feel I will probably figure out a little bit more about her as I start writing her. I do feel like I have Jackson down more as a character than I have Lizzie down. I feel like Lizzie right now feels very generic, and right now doesn't feel like she has a lot of personality. So I kind of want to dive more into her as a character and find out more about that. But yeah, that is a little bit kind of my beat sheet, I guess, as an overview, and some of it might change, and it probably will. I will probably find a way to change whatever I've written down once I start writing and deviate from the plan. And that is okay. So if you feel like you don't necessarily know how to plot it all down and you are struggling with that, or you are worried that if you commit to it now you can't change it later, that's not true. You can always change it later. You don't have to stick to this plan, but it will give you kind of something to hold on to as you're starting to write this, to know where you're going and what direction you're going in. But don't feel like you're stuck with this. If you feel like you probably are more of a discovery writer and a pantser and you just kind of want to see how things go once you write it, then do that. You don't have to have a full-on plan. I feel like I'm going to find out a lot more about the story as I start writing this, and even though I have this beat sheet now, I might deviate from it as I start writing it, because that's just who I am. But with me having brainstormed a little bit more, I do feel confident that most of the story is probably going to stay the same. So yeah, I might add in little things here and there, or I might change up a few things once I start writing this, but I do feel pretty okay with where I'm at with kind of the story and how I want it to go. Am I saying that my story is going to be like amazing and the best story, and now that I've plotted it, it's all going to make sense? No, because it might not even be like a great story. It might not be that the things that I plotted out with this beat sheet are actually making sense. It might be like a kind of a boring story. It might feel like, oh, this is very generic. It might be, but if I'm gonna enjoy writing this, then I don't really care if it's gonna be the best story that's ever written, because that's very hard to achieve. And I'm gonna just settle for feeling good about the story and feeling good about what I've come up with. So hopefully you feel the same way, and hopefully you have some idea down. Even if you don't have the full beat sheet, that is completely fine. As long as you know kind of what you're trying to write, you should be okay to continue on. And with that being said, this is the end of this video, but the next video is going to be linked right here. If you're watching this in real time, it's going to take a couple days, but it will be linked right here.